For the viewers, Mkers beat TSM, another North American team, on this exact map, 7-4. And they were able to walk away with 3 attacking rounds, 4 defensive rounds. They were a very holistically strong team against TSM. Oxygen are going to have to show something fantastic, because if TSM are losing to Mkers on this map, I mean, that is a mountain to climb.
Certainly is. TSM have not had a great run in stage 1, but they've shown up when it mattered here for the most part at SI. Oxygen, it's quite the reverse. The guys on the desk said that these guys finally hit first place in NAL after always being the bridesmaid, never quite the bride, and at SI they just haven't been able to get anything to stick. They're going to ban the Ash against Mkers, Jess.
That is a Lolo target ban. They've seen what Lolo can do on it. Mind you, if you look back to last map, literally just happened moments ago, then Lolo absolutely went off on the Ash and Melusi, so they're getting rid of that. They won't get rid of the Melusi, however. They'll get rid of the mirror instead. Gemini is the mirror main for the side of Mkers. So essentially they have target banned in some way, shape or form. Last time Mkers were on this map, they also target banned TSM. They got rid of the Zofia, so it's not a surprise that these kind of a little bit off-meta, more targeted bans are coming out. And Mkers will take a little bit of time here to decide what their last ban will be. Is it going to be a target? Well, a little bit. They're going to get rid of the Valkyrie. They didn't do that last time because TSM banned it for them. They got rid of the Kaid instead. But this time the Kaid will be in play, so we'll see whether or not that changes things up as Mkers start on the defense.
Yeah, well, that Kaid might not be too impactful. We do have Thatcher and Maverick on the cards. The Hibana is the only blow that the hard breach utility has seen. But just to touch on that Ash ban as well, it's funny, Oxygen have done it a couple times. They banned it against MIBR already in the groups. They also banned it against Space Station during the NAL season. And there's a point where, like, I wonder, obviously, you want to take that away from Lolo, right? But also, there is some good utility on the Ash, and if you were a roster that was planning on running the Ash and Zofia, well, now you've suddenly got to substitute something else in for that.
Absolutely. Speaking of substitutions, there's a nice little 6 pick onto the Clash. They won't be prepared for that one because, well, Yoga's going to really be the only one who can deal with it with those concussions. We've seen it a lot of Capitao. SSG was running it last match, and a lot of it from FaZe Clan as well. And that's something that not only can you use for an execute, but you can use to counter the Clash. They won't really have that in pocket here. And Mkers will start all the way downstairs in Armory. This is where they started against TSM as well. Aqui got a 2K on the mute. And so I'm just so excited for this match here, James. Honestly, I have to keep it together because this really is just history in the making.
Yeah, it's the first time that we've casted Oxygen. Now, it's been so long since I've really been intimately watching these guys play, and so I'm really excited to see how they do and what they can bring out, because they are coming from behind. They had such a good season, brought in Kino and Yoga, 2 up-and-coming players from CL. And Kino, he made a tweet on Monday, and he said, 3 months ago I was stuck playing ranked every day, and tomorrow I'll play the Six Invitational, and I'm still processing everything. Wow. And I mean, that was before he had a great first day. Their opening game, they won 7-0 over Parabellum. Since then, Kino and Oxygen have struggled. Kino has been the rookie of the year by all accounts. He got an ace on Thermite the very first round he played in NAL, and that was actually on this map. And just, unfortunately, SI has not quite been everything he hoped.
Well, Oxygen have an opportunity to change that now. There we go. That's a confirmation that the 6 pick occurred, and Vertical will call that out to the rest of Oxygen. Because of the Hibana ban, which I consider to be one of the strongest operators for a hard breach when you're pushing downstairs being banned, they will have to work. Foxay is going to have to bring the Maverick. Kino's brought that Thermite. You spoke about how he got an ace, being one of the best support players and rookies for NAL coming into it. And Foxay will make very quick work. The blue hatch gets open, and now he's going to work on the Moto hatch. I heard a C4 rip, but maybe that's just a sort of a pocket thing there from Aqui. He's the only one who has a C4 in hand. And interestingly enough, I think Gemini was hoping that Kino would try something over towards the kitchen hatch that he might be able to impact trip, but nothing yet, as this C4 is ready for the main stairs. Shots rain out. I think they're trying to bait it.
The great lineup, over it goes, but Yoga predicts it and backs on out. Believe he also managed to destroy that deployable shield in the hallway as Oxygen have made some good progress, but still a 5 versus 5, this full anchor setup, that shield still intact. Mkers are sitting pretty safely on that bomb site.
Here we go. Kino's going to try. Gemini's not in a really good position to impact trick this one. I don't think anyone's able. He tries and fails. And as a result now, they will get almost... In fact, not almost. They've got every single hatch opened. Mkers, they are feeling worse for wear here. I think blue, or rather dirt, is the only place that's not being pushed currently. They make their way down blue. Lolo says goodnight, but Foxay gets the trade. And when you're down to 25 seconds, this is where you've got to flourish if you want to be able to stop the incoming Oxygen.
Oxygen take a deep breath as they start to push on forward. Yoga from the bottom of main stairs does find the first kill for his team, and now looking forward, Oxygen have to make and execute work. Where is it going to come from? As Akwi's done some damage, Yoga bottom main stairs looking to cover as the plan starts to go down in Moto. Scatto taken down, all on Sasha. All of a sudden, as he has to retake, a 1v3 becomes a 1v2. He's got a lot of work ahead of him as Laxing and Yoga can cover safely. Patience from the newbie on Oxygen as he waits. Already has 1 kill to his name. Sasha checking every angle, but not the one that matters. Laxing, the veteran, takes him down, and that's the first round for Oxygen.
What I love there from Oxygen was they didn't rush their time. I actually thought they might be looking to make a statement here as they'd lost so many games throughout the group stages as a whole. I thought they might come into this a little bit restless. And because of that, they might make a few mistakes. They might not be as calculated as we usually see Oxygen. They're the first place team in NAL for a reason. They've come into this first round and shown they can eat up every single second of the clock and really use that to their advantage. They worked out in the end. I actually thought they might do a pop drop down kitchen hatch, but they decided to replace themselves, go over towards church, get a plant off there. The one place the smoke wasn't. Really good round there from Oxygen. And I think it's going to put Mkers on the back foot here to think, well, we couldn't deny any of the hatches. We couldn't deny the plant. We didn't get any of those effective smokes out. Our C4 for main stairs didn't work. And as a result, they'll move upstairs now to see if they have a better answer in CCTV.
It's funny, you mentioned Oxygen being really slow there, and that has definitely got to the point where it's a pattern for the NA teams at SI so far. We talked about how 2020 was a period of time where all of the different teams across the world started to develop individually because there was no inter-regional competition. There have been a lot of spokespeople, for example, Reaper, former coach, content creator now. He loves analyzing NA because they tend to have a bit more of a methodical, structured play style. And what's funny is coming into SI, that has actually suffered somewhat because of that time management. We're seeing these NA teams with their methodical attacks. They try and dot all their I's, cross all their T's, but they tend to run out of time, which is the most important T of them all. And, well, Mkers, they've already punished Oxygen, or tried to punish Oxygen once for that, but of course, as you said, slow and steady did get the win for OXG.
Foxay will deal with this mute jammer that will stop the wall, and Yoga will deal with Scutto, who's attempting to try and get an early pick there. Doesn't work out, and as Akwi tries to impact trick that thermite charge, he'll miss again. Mkers struggling with all of these impact tricks on both sites now. And they're just giving a little bit of freedom here for Oxygen, whether or not it's these impacts being wasted or bodies being thrown early on, James. Not good here for Mkers, who are seemingly on the back foot. Let's not forget, they haven't secured themselves that upper bracket spot yet, so they're really in a position here to propel themselves into that top 4 as a solidified top 4 player or team.
That's it. Mkers is safe from being eliminated today, but of course, you want to head into that upper bracket and have that second life. Foxay on the Kennel's balcony. Patience for him. He's just mainly trying to cut off players here as the rest of OXG. Okay, he's actually going to go deep, and what a great shot pre-firing the player on rafters, but he'll fall to the gas as OXG have to recompose. Mkers have suddenly tried to bring this back a little bit, but Foxay didn't have the diffuser. Kino has that in hand. And really, all Foxay achieved was clearing off that Rafters player, but usually that takes a very long time and a lot of effort. Now OXG, with over a minute to go, they have that control, and they've set themselves up really well for this execute.
That was a viable trade there that Foxay did, because they were going to struggle, as you said, with the rafters position no matter what they did. There was an earlier impact there which opened up that line of sight onto the window hop. And Kino's a little by himself here. Good C4 catches Kino, and Gemini, he's got the Kobe. And as a result, now they've evened the man count with just under 60 seconds left. Watch your back, because that's where Laxing is. He'll come rushing on in. And Sasha, that's his last smoke babe to work with. But because of the time, Oxygen have done the right thing. They've been able to bait out every single denial piece. And all that remains is Sasha.
Gonna have to play this perfectly in a 1v3. Ooh, Laxing's just relaxing over on the rafters and does take down Sasha. So Oxygen have found 2 back-to-back attacks.
There we go. Looking cool, calm, collected there, James. Who questioned them? They're just coming in late, resting up.
Oh, that's certainly what they did in terms of the tournament so far. A 7-0 in their opening game against Parabellum, but yet to find any victories against the interregional competition for Oxygen. They still, of course, have Space Station and Giants to go after this game. And, well, if they can defeat Mkers here, then all they will need to do is win one of their games, either Giants or Space Station, and Oxygen are safe from being eliminated today. But there is a chance here that if Mkers defeat Oxygen, then really Oxygen are just relying on beating Giants, which is going to be the last game of the day, and it may well be one of the most exciting. Oxygen really getting a win here would do a lot for their chances.
Well, I don't have a lot of stats to go off of because, I mean, we just have that TSM game and then, of course, PG Nats, which is the Italian national system, where they 7-0'd IGP. So take this with a pinch of salt again. The data sample really small here, but it looks like Mkers does do a little better on their attacking side for the most part, on Clubhouse specifically. So I wonder whether or not that will remain true. I mean, we're only 2 rounds into it. We're into the 3rd round now, but they seem to be struggling on their defense.
Which is somewhat surprising in the greater context of Clubhouse, right? We usually look at Clubhouse as, yeah, there are some viable attacks on this map, but let's have a look at the NAL, for example, where Oxygen play. Clubhouse is 67% defensive-sided.
Yep.
And Cash is actually the most defensive-sided of them all. So at least within the NAL, you know, you would expect this to favor defense. And for that reason, you know, Mkers really do need to start stepping it up.
It's about to get hot.
Interestingly enough as well, when TSM, or rather when Mkers were able to 7-4 TSM, there were different roles that Mkers were playing. Acqui was on things like the Jaeger. We were seeing different roles, different operators for all different players here, and now they've switched it up again. And I'm not saying that's why they're seeing weakness, but when you change things up consistently, it does mean that you can also get inconsistent results, and I think that's what Mkers are seeing here now.
Map control for Oxygen step by step. I like that they're very hastily running through this, as long as they're being thorough and don't get punished, but
Deploying heartbeat sensor.
of course, as we go back to Church Arsenal for Mkers, that is a beautiful floor bang for Yoga as Scatto gets a little bit more than he bargained for, peeking the main stairs. That aggression shut down straight out of the gate. For the 2nd round in a row, Yoga's been the one to open it up.
Ooh, good trade late, albeit, but Gemini does manage to get it. And I was just going to notate there that Scatto's had an awful first half of this first half. He has managed to be in the opening death every single round, or at least close to. And that's going to be a shame, because that pulse being off the board was what they were hoping to be able to counter this deep armory hold here from Oxygen. That hatch gets opened up early, and none of that denial again, even though a simple shot or two or an impact would have stopped that one. But with the buck raining hell above, it's made it very difficult for Mkers to traverse this side of the map. I was going to say, Kino, I thought you saw Acqui there, and yes, he did. And he'll rip his head straight off, as now Mkers are much more worse for wear. 3v4 here, about 40 seconds left here for Oxygen, but they like to take their time.
But that time will slowly whittle away. All it's going to take here is a big multi-kill from a Mkers player to shut down, but it looks like Oxygen have dropped in. The evil eye Gives Kino a bit of a wave as he drops down, but he's not rushing to this plant, and he can almost take out that Evil Eye. I believe it looked away. Perfect timing, so well played here for Mkers. Oxygen still have the time. That Evil Eye still not destroyed, and once again harassing Kino. Gemini can do a lot of damage here, but Oxygen have the man advantage. 4v3. Kino still once again trying to plant. Gemini taken down by Laxing. That's a big pick. Lolo, the last one left, and Laxing once again for Oxygen steps up. And OXG have just taken 3 attacks in a row.
Well, this is very refreshing. As someone who's quite unwell now, I needed myself a bit of oxygen, actually, and I'm getting a whole face full of it. That's why I'm not sounding 100%, ladies and gentlemen, so you have to excuse me, but just can't get away from these group stages. They've been incredible, all of these upsets. A lot of people were saying, James, that coming into this matchup, given how Mkers have performed against all NA teams, that Oxygen were technically the underdogs, the less likely to win this matchup. And you'd be right on paper, but I think what we're seeing from Oxygen so far is they had a really good talk last night. Look at the social medias of guys like Laxing, Foxe, etc. They said that this is not usually them, that they need to change something up. And they've done so, and they've come in today and they're really proving it now.
Which is just so exciting, because Oxygen, we know they have so much potential. We saw that in their NAL Stage 1 campaign, first place. We saw that in their opening game of SI, 7-0 over Parabellum. Of course, Mkers have a hell of a lot of potential, but there is a significant difference here between the experience on these two rosters. Foxe, Laxing, and Vertical have been around since the dawn of time in North America. Also made their appearance at several invitationals. Of course, Laxing won the very first invitational on Xbox with Elevate. Exciting times. But it hasn't been a great event for them so far, so it's nice to see this, a breath of fresh air, pun intended, for the Oxygen guys. Oh man, I didn't realize how much fun it would be to cast these guys and how much it would be an endless supply of puns.
I need an endless supply of oxygen when we're done the playoffs, please. Just absolutely send me a tank so I can lay in bed and recover so that when we get back to the playoffs, I am ready to go. But speaking of ready to go, surely Scatto, now that he's on a different operator, he'll be ready to go. None of this opening death business here for him just yet. And the reason that, not the reason, rather, the rhyme and the rhythm of bringing both a castle and a frost on Gym Bedroom, I really like. I know it's a bit of an old meta type of thing to bring the castle. A lot of people are bringing a Rooney instead these days, you know, in the EU region. But I like it. I think it's good. It fortifies extra. And if they wanted, they could have also brought an Rooney. But they'll forego that.
That's a 2-floor angle. That goes all the way down to the basement through the blue hatch from Scatto. I haven't seen that one before. That's really nice. But Mkers holding on to cash as long as possible. Oh, bit of a risk there from Yoga. But he gets away with it. Gemini finds the opening kill. That's Laxing gone down. And a big pick as well. Laxing's been a strong performer, 6-1 over the last 3 rounds.
Really well done here for Gemini to finally put Laxing down. He hadn't died yet whatsoever, had a 6 KD. Finally put an end to that story. And the first part of contention of this push will be over towards Red and Cash in a really bad position. Both Aqui and Scatto there and weren't able to get a single pick. Vertical, he wants to get rid of all the utility over here so it can't be used late. And again, they are in a man disadvantage early on, halfway through the round so far. And Mkers, they are, again, worse for wear. It just seems like their defensive half here is not working out in any way, shape, or form. And it's leaving these support players on site having to do a lot of the heavy lifting, which hasn't really been possible.
Even the rounds where Mkers do find the opening pick, Oxygen always have a reply. This is a very nice C4, but Kino's nowhere near it, so he survives. Lola in an aggressive position. Doesn't have a lot of mobility. Hiding behind the weights. As we see on the balcony, Kino biding his time as Oxygen like to do.
They've got a really good amount of time here to work with. That's the last C4 as well, James. Gemini, he's going to have to hold tight here with the Vector.
Ooh, he's actually going to peek it aggressively. Foxe's ready for that one. And takes his head clean off. Mkers, just 2 players left, but Sasha's going to find one. This is actually getting pretty close now, Jess. As Lolo just dancing around these 2 angles. The nade comes through. That's perfect from Vertical. And Kino to finish him off. Sasha last one left, and it looks like it might be 4 for 4 for Oxygen. Sasha has to deny this. He might be able to find the angle, cut off perfectly. He denies it. No way. Are they going to be able to refrag vertical? You God. Thank goodness he could make that work. And Oxygen are going to be thanking their lucky stars. Vertical saved that round.
Nice bit of experience there from Vertical as well. You have maybe about 0.3, 0.5 of a second to decide whether or not you're going to replant, whether you're going to go for the kill. In that situation, the only answer was go for the kill. There was no time left. And with 7-second defuse, you'd easily fall to that defender. So that was an almost clutch moment there. But Mkers, again, 4 rounds in a row, they will fall. And after a dominant showing against North America as a whole throughout these groups and a dominant showing just the game previous against SSG, they're now showing their weakness on Clubhouse. And Oxygen, they've come alive. And I'm really excited for them. Both of these teams, whether it's the underdogs or the top-rated team from NAL, who are finally activating on the last day here. That's all they needed, though, James. That's the thing. You could have come into the last day 1-2 points maximum, and considering how close in points the entire leaderboard was, you could have just shown all of your strats in one day on just a few maps. And I'm not saying that's what Oxygen are doing in any way, shape, or form, but that's what they're able to get away with now.
Yeah, we haven't seen the clubhouse from Oxygen yet in SI, and well, if it has been a trick up their sleeve, it's working now. But for Mkers, they're going to need something to get back into this game. I don't even know if saying get back is really accurate. They haven't been in it at all. I'm liking the little fist pumps as they take their tactical timeout.
Keep the energy high there, James. That's what you got to do. No matter even if you're on the back foot, you want to make sure that the mentality is positive.
Yeah, of course. And in terms of taking a tactical timeout, you know, you're a big fan of Mkers. You've worked with Germany before. What's the kind of thing that you would be addressing right now, or the Mkers need to be addressing right now? Is they've just taken their tack. They've lost 4 rounds of defense in a row. They realistically, you know, on this defensive side of map, they can't even hit par for the course now. They need both of these rounds just for a shot.
There's a lot of teams that will take tack pauses because players or the whole team as a whole might be a little bit tilted. They might be a little bit upset or angry that they're not winning rounds. But having worked with Germany before as his coach, I know that that's not the problem. The mentality won't be the problem at the moment. It's how they're acting. It's the lack of coordination that they're showing there. And it's their inability to, I would say, respond to where the push is coming from. They seem a little scared. And I don't want to blame that as being what it is. Clubhouse is a map that locks you out of certain rooms very easily. So that might be all it is. But it definitely looks like they're not responding to the problems as they come. And when they try to, it's with solutions that aren't properly viable for that situation.
One thing I am liking, though, as Mkers go back to Church Arsenal for the 3rd time after losing it twice, is they finally adapted their strategy. We're seeing a couple of changes, and the main thing is the fact that we're actually seeing some roam presence. I think it's a bit loose at the moment. I don't have eyes on all the defenders, but there's one in storage. This could be a kill, but Vertical always hot on his shot, and he takes down Lolo very early on. A good opening pick for Oxygen.
I can't believe Lolo just stood there when there was a drone right in front of him. He surely would have heard it. And by standing as a sitting duck there, he's a bit of a freebie. Akwi knows someone is in garage, and yes, he is. There's 2 of them. There's Yoga, and he'll be the one to take Akwi out, and it just doesn't seem like any answer. Like I said, some of the solutions that they're trying to put up against Oxygen here aren't the right solutions. Playing solo roam, and you kind of caught a bit loose there, was not the play, because Oxygen have been playing their roam clear perfectly. They've been droning really well, and they're acting on the information. Scuttle again, trying to play the solo game. He will be punished. And as a result here, you cannot rely on being solo gods. You will get absolutely decimated.
Yeah, and with that, it's a 5 versus 1 for Oxygen. With less than half the round gone, Sasha can find 1. Knows he can't realistically confirm that kill. This is quite a task ahead of him, but because Oxygen have the info about where Sasha was, they flood the site. Plant going down. So much time left. Sasha really needs to go big here. Rounds the corner, might actually find a pick. Oxygen take the flawless round. 5 in a row for them, and they are looking unstoppable.
Really happy for Oxygen now to come into this last day. You and I were talking before, and of course the desk alluded to this, is that Oxygen, well, it depends of their games who they win against, but it's not a tall order for them to get out of that 8th spot today. And given what we're seeing on paper at the very least, I didn't actually expect them to take this game. I expected that they'll probably be able to take the next one and then the one after that, of which they really only needed to have beaten Giants today to get themselves out of the danger zone. They might be trying to make a statement here by saying, well, we can beat Mkers, we can beat all of the rest of the teams that are coming up for us today, and we can propel ourselves into a really good position. Do they have the opportunity now on the points that they're in, James, to get themselves into the upper bracket, or is it just lower brackets no matter what?
The thing with the upper bracket is it's really complicated because of how the tiebreaker system works. Currently, we have 5 teams in Group B tied on 3 points. 5 teams. And we only have 8 teams in the group, right? So almost everyone is tied on the same number of points at the moment. Obviously, that won't stick. By the end of the day, we should have a better idea. Well, we'll know for sure. But it gets a little bit complicated trying to theory craft exactly who can land where. What we do know for certain is that Mkers is guaranteed to make it into the playoffs, whether upper or lower. We don't know as of yet. And Oxygen, they need to win this and then one of their other games as well, or just their Giants game to lock themselves in for playoffs. But if they do win this and the next 2 games, they'll be on 4 points, which is higher than any other team is currently. So while I don't have the exact calculations, I think it is highly likely that if Oxygen just have an amazing day, Jess, they could go straight into the upper bracket.
Well, there you go. Still a lot of opportunity from 0 to hero. Is a very big possibility now for Oxygen. And Laxing has been having a great game. I referenced what he had said on social media about 24 hours ago about how he was incredibly unhappy with the performance of himself and his team, and how he wanted to show that this really wasn't who they were and their identity. And now they're really acting on that. Their ability to get really clean and crisp kills off a lot of these hot drones have been very, very impressive. And the droners themselves, you've got to give them props to them because they're the ones giving perfect calls. Good night, Sasha. That is such an unbelievable shot through those metal rods there. No one can trade that, not if you tried. And that is an incredible opening yet again for Oxygen, who are just taking numbers. Everyone getting slaughtered all over the map here.
And Yoga once again with the opening picks as well. He's had him half the rounds we've had so far. The Avalanche is not stopping anytime soon as Yoga finds his triple. Laxing's already found one, leaving us in a 5 versus 1. Germany is going to have to pull something out of absolutely nowhere. C4 is not going to do a damn thing as Vertical locks in a flawless round, the 2nd in a row for Oxygen. And with that, match point.
I don't know what to say without sounding extraordinarily negative about Mkers and extraordinarily positive on the other end of the spectrum about Oxygen. I'm sure there are people sitting there going, break it down. What are Mkers doing wrong? What is Oxygen doing right? Number 1, they're droning. Their ability to act on the information almost instantaneously, perfect. Their ability to take mechanical engagements well above and beyond anything Mkers has put on the screen today, even last match against SSG and now against Oxygen, check. Everything is rolling for them bit by bit by bit. Their utility usage with the Maverick of Foxay, them being able to get those walls up with Kino in record time. Whilst they do take their mid and late round a little bit slower than their early round, it does show that their plan has come to fruition time and time again. And now they only need 1 defensive round, which is extraordinarily easy to do when you think about the fact that there's a 67% defensive sidedness to Clubhouse in North America. That's pretty big.
Yeah, certainly Oxygen slipping onto their defense is going to be massively favored now. My question is not so much, is Oxygen going to win this game? My question is Oxygen going to get their second 7-0? Because that is definitely possible. We have not seen very many 7-0s so far at the Six Invitational. The first one was Oxygen in their opening game against Parabellum on Oregon. The second one was Space Station against Giants on Clubhouse. This may well be the 3rd one right here. And funnily enough, it would be the same team that's already got one. So Oxygen are very much set up for this, and it's going to have to be a unbelievable comeback from Mkers to even consider the remote possibility of taking this game.
They'll have to have one of the best attacking halves of their life being under Mkers. And I think they'll definitely be shaken a little bit after the tossing and turning that Oxygen have put them through in that first half. Very convincing, not to the point of just the rounds on the board, but again, the early, mid, and late round from Oxygen, it all seems really, really well-oiled, and the machine is working perfectly for Oxygen. I definitely think this is a stark comparison to the other games we've been seeing from Oxygen, other than that 7-0 against Parabellum, which I actually don't think looked as convincing as this match from them here today has looked. Oxygen hasn't had the best of time here, which is why they're currently sitting in 8th, but with this possible 7-0, that is going to be a story that we just look back on.
Oh, and first pick is for Mkers. That's a good one, and also a big player to take down. We've talked a lot about Laxing so far, but in the recent rounds, it's been Yoga who's really stepped up. He's on the vigil and making a flank up the main stairs. Reveals his position with a quick spray. Also spotted on the drone. He's going to go back down, as is Fox, but no. But now, staying aggressive, they're not satisfied with what they've managed to get. And this information denial roam is really going to be utilized here by Oxygen. Mute, Mozzie, and Vigil, as we see Foxay take a very aggressive position inside of the kitchen, just hoping that he will get misdroned.
Well, he's in such a precarious position too. And because we're way beyond halfway in the round, look at the drones there for the attackers. There's only a couple on the board to be able to be used. And as a result, if they don't, you're right, re-drone kitchen, Foxay will be just perched up in there. They're very, very close to dealing with him here. And there's a vertical for Yoga to use underneath onto the kitchen door as well, which he is holding on to. There's double fortification for kitchen, so they better avoid it. But if they don't, they will be punished very, very quickly. A run on past to get the kitchen hallway opened on up. And as we're getting down to possibly the dying seconds of the round here, James, I think they have no idea what's about to hit them.
This is going to be a hero play from Fox, round in the corner. Doesn't give his position away. Flanks into Bar. Comes around the corner, says hello, traded, but at least he got one, and a lot of damage onto Sasha as well. Mkers, at least they dealt with him, but 4v3 is not unwinnable. Yoga, though, does some damage. Kino as well jumps into it. Yoga for the double. Lolo, the last one left. Oxygen, 7-0 Mkers.
Well, that is a nice, fast one here today. They have just speed run through Mkers, who had been absolutely ripping through every single North American team that they were going up against. Not a single North American team had beat Mkers up until this point. It seemed like Mkers just happened to be the kryptonite. And now I'm going to have to eat my words after I made a tweet about the kryptonite of North America being Italy, good coffee, good food. And well, now I'm going to have to eat my words because Oxygen, they've broken the curse for NA and they will walk away only needing to win. Do they just need to beat Giants now? I mean, this is all for the desk, but just give the viewers a little indication, James. Where are we sitting for Oxygen now?
If my calculations are correct, Oxygen still need to beat either Space Station or Giants. If they do either of those, they are qualified. So Oxygen, this is a big comeback for them after what has been a really shocking Six Invitational. They are at the bottom of the leaderboard, or at least they were until now. A massive win for OXG. And for Mkers, Jess, not the form that we just saw in the previous game against Space Station.
I think after what they did to TSM on it with completely different roles, completely different operators, they need to go back to what they did then against TSM and do that one. Not what they pulled out today. This was definitely nothing to write home about.
Well, we hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of Games Done Quick. We'll be back with the post-match analyst desk very shortly.
does it take to create a secure community? Join us on the second episode of I Call Next as we discover how to protect what's most important and enable worry-free play.
Hello and welcome back to the desk here, and yeah, it doesn't feel like very long since the last time we saw you. It's almost like OXG are after the hot lap. They didn't think they could win the race, so they're just going to see if they can get the quickest time round on the soft tires, but they made hard work out of Mkers, who just never had a look in that whole game.
No, they definitely did, and I believe this game was just a little bit longer than the Parabellum game. I think this one was 31 minutes or something like that.
Someone get the stopwatch out.
28 minutes. So I'm sure people will be looking into that. And it's not like it was a close game. Like there wasn't close rounds. Of course, there was a couple of rounds where there was the opportunity of a clutch potentially happening, but there was still a 1v3 situation that was always going to go Oxygen's way. So it is. I don't know what to say about it. It's difficult. Oxygen were very, very on top of Mkers today. Let's put it like that.
It was a perfect shutdown. It was everything we wanted and sort of expected to see from OXG earlier on, especially after their first game against Parabellum. It was just so consistent. They would find that loose Mkers player and they would tear them apart. Their movement, their unity, their ability to just hunt for anything that got a little bit loose, they never seemed to stop. They were progressively consistent in terms of just applying that pressure onto the defenses, and then obviously it was just a 6-0 lockout on your attacks on club. You couldn't have asked for a better showing from them.
No, you definitely couldn't have. So I'm just going to quickly pull up these scenarios we have been talking about to just start setting the scene, because we were talking about Oxygen for scenario A and a scenario B if they would like to make out of group stages here. Scenario A would be to beat Mkers and to beat Space Station Gaming. Well, they've done the first part of that. Scenario B would be like, even if you lose those first two games, you would win against Giants, you would go through based on the head-to-head differential. Well, they beat Mkers now, and then I was checking and I realized Space Station isn't even safe yet at this very time. They could still be going out if they lose their next matchup. So there is a lot on the line right here, but just look at that. Like 100% cost on vertical, Foxe, and Yoga on 10 on 2. Beautiful KD.
This is, in that weird way, exactly what we kind of wanted to see from the roster as well, from a stats point of view, is those older guns, the people that have been, here in SI, competing multiple times, have been here since the longest time, being able to set it up, whilst those young guns, Kanna and Yoga, doing what they did. The filthy kills that were kind of popping off either side. As I said, you want to try and look for positives on Mkers, you look in the other games that they played. This wasn't the one where you could really pull stuff together. They'll be aware of it. They're already secured. I'm not going to say that played any factor on it because, you're always trying every bit of the gun game, but OXG just had their number. They had it locked in. As I said, it was just the hunting of the players that would try and cause problems, which against every other team that Mkers have gone against, there's always been a loose entity. And here, it just could not start moving.
That's it, like the playstyle of Oxygen perfectly played into the way that Mkers seem to be playing now. The isolations coming through, just a quick succession of bodies running after them. It is basically a bit what we, not really what we saw from Parabellum against other games where they overran the Clash, for example, but it is still in some extent like, alright, there's the site. We know to play one player here, here, and here. So alright, let's just put all the pressure down on them and then make sure we have that man advantage for the end.
Well, let's have a quick look at the group standings and see how things look as they are. And Giants are now the team that has slightly tumbled down to the bottom. As we said, it's not over. There's still a lot of games left to play today and still a lot of potential for those three teams around the bottom to find themselves staying there. Mkers currently at the top of the board, but obviously they've got another game played in hand compared to a lot of other teams here. So they're still fighting, they're still vying. Again, it's so malleable because you can see where the names are, but the most important thing is that column on the right. The top's on 3, last place is on 2 points. There's
so
still
close.
About 6 games total to be played today.
And yet, I believe there's only 2 ways Giants are going to be able to stay in the tournament. So it is going to be, it is so close, but yet Giants are so far away. They need to win their game against Oxygen, otherwise they're out, period. And they need to make sure that Oxygen wins from Space Station and Space Station loses from NIP. That will be the other way. So that's the only 2 ways Giants is going to be able to make it here. So either win, they have it in their own hands, and then hope that Space Station is not going to pick up any other points, or hope that the puzzle pieces all fall into place.
Wow, that's the second 7-0 at the hands of OXG, and I guess they want a little bit of a time of a breather before their next game that's happening on this stream. We actually have a bit of a break now before we come back with OXG versus SSG. So we're going to put our eyes and our heads towards the B stream. The current game ongoing is Parabellum versus MIBR. It was around even. Last I heard, I shouted over the wall to get the intel from Des and Ace, and they let me know it was about 3-3. So we'll see you there, and then the stream will kick back into life when we have our 2 NA Giants go head-to-head to see who can claw their way away from the bottom of the board. See you soon.
Of course, once they clear it out, that's not all of the danger done, or all dealt with rather. Still 3 nitro cells available for the defense, which could be a little bit scary late round. Parabellum, of course, though, their focus here currently still on Pixel. Lakidra, look at the utility protecting this position. 2 ADS devices and a mute jammer. He can just sit there and he'll be pretty happy.
And just a welcome as well for those in the A stream who are just tuning in. We've got a big game happening here. A battle for first place, could you believe it, between Parabellum and MIBR. Parabellum got off to a great start. They were up 3-1. Then we had a bit of an extended break with a tactical timeout from MIBR and a rehost. And since then, they've won the last 3 rounds in a row. They've taken their first lead. And now Philippox with the first pick of the round. MIBR are full of momentum right now, guys, as they look to close out here and get a +2 round differential.
Oh, Spirits inside of Train taken down. They're just pushing straight through, but they're being absolutely demolished. Euphoria lit up by the SMG as well. The diffuser dropped. It's all fallen apart here for Parabellum. The push through mining does not work out. Sona does get one back. Maybe Euphoria could find another, but it's a stretch. It's a big stretch at that. And Sona needs to go nuclear, but MIBR will not allow that to happen.
Very quick round, very poor in the end from Parabellum, but full credit to MIBR, who have just stepped it up a notch. They've really turned the heat on. So much so that it has forced out a tactical timeout from Parabellum, who will hope that they can have the same results that MIBR got from their tactical timeout after Parabellum got off to the perfect start. And in this tactical timeout, another good opportunity for those coming through from the A stream to sort of remind them, guys, as to how this match has played out so far. As I said before, Parabellum got off to a great start, but MIBR, they've fought back.
Been a close match between these two. It was a 3-3 half, and MIBR and both Parabellum were bringing some adaptations to their setups, to their approaches, to those set objectives, and it was pretty neck and neck, but Parabellum is struggling a little bit here. On their first 2 attacks, round number 1, or their first attack rather, was service cooking, where MIBR just completely slaughtered them, and the crosses weren't being covered correctly from the Canadians. And then in that most recent round gone, Parabellum tried to go for a top-down reading take. The call came out, I presume, that maybe they could go for train, but that was also just completely shut down. They did not find the appropriate picks and the appropriate trades, and the round just essentially fell apart. So this tactical timeout would be critical for them in just, I guess, reflecting upon what went wrong in those rounds, how they can change things up for future rounds and try and get some rounds back on the board.
Yeah, and of course, for those in the A stream who just watched Mkers get 7-0'd by Oxygen, this makes this game even more important due to that result, because these two teams, Parabellum, MIBR, they're 3-2 coming into it. The winner, of course, will go 4-2. They'll go to the top of the standings, at least for the time being. Obviously, more games to come later on in the day that will solve what has been a very close-knit Group B. Back into the round, though. And for Parabellum, they've got to hope that they can somehow get back into this one and have the same effects of the other tactical timeout from MIBR, which that started them and their momentum. We'll see if it can now flip over to a Parabellum momentum.
This is not an upstairs hold. This is an upstairs extension from MIBR. The site is actually mining and dining. Not only does the objectives rhyme, or do the objectives rhyme, which is pretty dope, but this is an objective that doesn't see a whole lot of play in competitive Siege. You see, every now and then, teams will sort of bring it out as, I guess, as a pocket strategy, but it's not frequented by a lot of teams. So maybe Parabellum will be tested here. Maybe this is an objective that they haven't had to attack a whole lot.
Well, there's not really too many teams that would typically attack this site, guys, because it's just not that common in general. And as you said, a bit of a pocket sort of strat. You see it every now and then, but it's not exactly a common strategy that we do see employed. It's usually dining and reading that does get played instead of mining. This is definitely going to test Parabellum and their ability to adapt on the fly. A little bit of damage onto Reduct, who's getting a bit antsy, peeking up into Skylight. And it's the same as well for MIBR. You know, how many times have they been able to sort of employ this strategy and how they're going to play it right now? They look confident, but what happens if Parabellum push in, get a kill or two? Does it all just fall apart? We'll have to see. It's a risk versus reward right in front of us here. MIBR looking for that match point. As Dev likes to say, they're on break point at the moment.
Parabellum looking to open the top red wall. It was, as you could see, jammed by Mute. The nade took it out though, and they'll be able to open up fully if they so wish, and then it begin to apply pressure over to the Kidra on that pixel location. Parabellum want to establish Vert in Lounge, but they can't do so until that Jaeger player is cleared, so expect there to be a dogfight, and it's Sonar to get on top on that occasion. And there's a second onto Raps. Dominant from Parabellum, but a good response with the Nitro.
Well, it's just all popping off right now. 3 kills in the span of about 10 seconds. That was the Washrooms player originally flushed out. Parabellum had a 5-on-3 advantage, but it was only momentarily, though, in that sort of advantage, because Sonar did get blown up. Minute left on the clock. Now they can take advantage above and hold Cigar Lounge. Looking into mining. Spirits will get an easy kill. Easy dub. And Parabellum have been able to just tear this defense apart pretty easily for the most part. Felipox, Reduct, the last two. We've seen some crazy things, but it would be none crazier than this if Felipox can pull off a 1v4 clutch hold. Not going to happen. And Parabellum get a much-needed round win to just stop this momentum. It was 4 rounds in a row to MIBR, and finally, that has been shut down by Parabellum.
A good read there by Parabellum, able to dismantle that defense one step at a time. 2 picks up above was enough to give them all the control that they would want and all the control that they needed to pick apart the rest of that defense. Verticality reigns supreme. They take the round. It's their first attacking round win here on Cafe against MIBR. They'll be satisfied with that result, and they'll be happy that their timeout was worth it.
Yeah. And that's exactly what Parabellum needed. You take that tactical timeout, you come in, and if you lose this round, suddenly you're also then down match point, 6-3. The mental dexterity of Parabellum really then comes into question. And right now, they're still in this game. 4-5 doesn't look as bad. All of a sudden, things are all good. You had a tactical timeout, you had a breather, you had a bit of a chat. And they can get back into this one here on Cafe, because it's very much in their grasp. If Parabellum can come back, claw their way back, win this match 4-2, the Cinderella story then continues on, and maybe top 4 could await them. But it's something that they have to now make happen on the attack here. And this is when you sort of go back to maybe their defense, guys, and you say, well, there's chances that they missed, opportunities they let go. Will it come back to bite them? We'll have to see.
Bomb located by attackers.
This is the first time we are going to see Bar and Cocktail attempted here by MIBR. Overall, it's not been an overly successful side for defense at Six Invitational, but they're going to give it a crack nonetheless. Interesting washrooms extension there. No rotation back to Freezer and Backstore. So whoever plays there will likely be playing for their life. Or they'll need to try and make a suicidal run back down White Corridor late round. Parabellum with sufficient utility to clear out that location. Lots of flashbangs and a couple of nades alongside Sona's impacts as well will allow that position to be cleared, provided that they do it in an efficient manner. Outside of that, Spirits is playing on the Jackal, and that could help in locating any potential roamers that lurk around here for MIBR.
Yeah, and MIBR, of course, the decent roam game in the previous matchup. We'll see. So far, it hasn't been too much of an issue for Parabellum, but see how much they want to continue to be aggressive with it. One thing I do want to point out, we've had a couple of rehosts, of course, so the score's not quite all up to date. Philippox 10-6 overall, so 7-3 looks good, but 10-6 overall. But it's Esker and Spirits, guys, that are leading the way for Parabellum. 11-4 for Esker, 10-6 for Spirits. Those two the standouts. That's who I'm looking to see if they can continue this. And
I think they're going to rush. I think they might rush here. They've drained out sight. They know it's clear. They're prepping a smoke canister, and they might go for the drop now. Lucidra does get the first, though, so it will be tough, and that may well hamper Parabellum's plan here. They still commit to it, but Falls is ready and waiting. He finds that pick, and it's just falling apart here. Parabellum just sending it straight down the skylight, one after another, and now Sona's left in the 1-on-5.
I mean, how many times do you really see that work out? How many times have we seen that sort of rush strat through Skylight just get shut down with ease? I think we even saw it at SI already. Someone ended up dropping down in a pog mat, and well, that was quite hilarious. No frost mat this time, but it's still a similar result, right? Where you just get shredded instantly, and it just feels like a wasted round from Parabellum. MIBR get match point. They didn't even really have to do anything.
I like the intent there from Parabellum. They tried something different, but was this the right time to attempt that? It's a round that could haunt them later if the match point is converted into a map win here for MIBR. A risky round to attempt that from the Canadians. Again, I respect that. You respect the grind from the boys, you know, but I don't know. Was that the round really to be trying that? They did drain it out, so they were playing a calculated game, but MIBR responded really, really well by sitting back and just shredding them as they entered 1-by-1 late round.
But that's all you have to do really with that. You know, if you're going to rush Skylight, I mean, like, what else do you expect MIBR to really do? You just sit back, wait for it to happen, and then literally shoot them as they drop down. Sure, the smokes are going to go out from Parabellum. That's going to block lines of sight, attempt to make it difficult, but it just never really works out. It's the amount of times I've seen that players get sprayed through those smokes, for instance, because it's only one area, one very small area, that they can actually even drop into anyway. So Parabellum, I'm not sure about that one. And the fact that they also lost a player really early on before the drop down anyway made that even more difficult, right? Like, the idea is you drop down, you trade, you win your trade to get that plant down. And if you can, then it's very difficult to retake because you've got the player watching from Skylight. It just doesn't work out for Parabellum. Now it's match point for MIBR. They'll look to close this one out. And if they do, it'll be top spot in Group B waiting for them.
5 seconds to go.
Activating ADS.
Will MIBR be able to close out this map? Let's find out. It's a downstairs defense here, reading and dining with the extension above that we have come to expect on Cafe. Parabellum will look to clear that out. Last time they attacked down below, they tried to ignore it, I guess. Pushing through mining and into train, that was immediately shut down though. Anticipating a much more traditional take here from Parabellum. This is not the time to be experimenting too much. Oh, that Nitro Cell narrowly avoiding Esker. That could have been huge had MIBR found that pick.
And these are the pressure rounds now. Match point, Parabellum have got to attack. They've got to find the picks. They've got to take a few risks to get those few rewards. Knowing, though, that if they do make the mistakes and they do slip up, MIBR is going to capitalize because they are a team that does that. And MIBR has honestly been the better team in this matchup, but Parabellum have been at least good enough to keep it close. And it's just about whether or not MIBR have got what it takes to just close this out and be the superior team. Like their score would suggest, if they win this, they'll be 4-2, top of Group B, good sides moving into the playoffs. Reduct takes a big amount of damage from that nade and at least gives Parabellum something moving forward. Reduct is low over in Cocktail. Lucid watching close by.
Good teamwork from Parabellum to be able to clear that ADS device. I believe it was behind the bar, at least that's what the ping would suggest. Either way, though, that grenade was allowed to travel through and a lot of damage was inflicted as Reduct did reinforce that rotation for lead box. Under the pump, Parabellum looking to take control of Cocktail. Time is slowly starting to deplete, though. Penguin can now make his way across and use the X-Kairos to create an additional line of sight, applying a lot of pressure on this position. Spirits gets the entry. It's a big one at that, and now they have control above.
I don't think they cleared out Lucid, though. He's going to go back down white stairs. Okay, so he was able to survive, get all the way back down below. Time is not friendly here for Parabellum. It took them so long to clear out Cocktail. 50 seconds left now. They can start to get to work above, establish this bird control. It may end up just being a pillars drop and eventually look for that default plant. They still need to establish as much vert as possible. Try and clear out these players below. Looking at the nitro cells, and I don't see any available, and there isn't. They've already been used by both Bleedbox and Falls.
MIBR looking to set up now for a retake. A couple of members off site. They may well let Parabellum plant here, but it still will be tough either way here for the Brazilians.
It's going to flank.
Parabellum setting themselves up, and they need to be careful of that flank.
This is going to be the flank that may stop or at least hinder this default plant. Penguin's going in now. There's Parabellum who are winning all their shots. The flank didn't even work out from Lucid. Parabellum, when it came down to those final moments, when the pressure rises, they come out on top, winning those trades. And they get another round out of this match. 5-6. Still match point, though, for MIBR.
It was a swift clear of above there from Parabellum. They established the vert and they forced MIBR away from the site. And whilst, like I mentioned, you might be able to pull off a retake, Parabellum, they knew that. They were ready and waiting and had every single potential crossfire, potential rotation, 100% without a doubt covered. From above, from below, from side to side, there was nothing that MIBR could do. Holy jeebus, I almost just swore there. What a flick there at the end to close the round out there for Parabellum. A clean execute in the end, and now they'll need to tackle Kitchen.
And it feels like a lifetime ago that we actually saw service cooking. It was MIBR who defended it successfully. That was the 7th round, guys, and as I said, a lifetime ago. And not only that, but MIBR attacked it successfully as well. So far, the only time that Parabellum have won Kitchen was that very second round of the entire game, which was, of course, that retake after MIBR got the plant down. So MIBR have been certainly much better on this Kitchen site than Parabellum, so they're going to have to buck that trend, turn that fortune around, and find a way to attack this site.
When robots do it better.
Echo has played a pivotal role on this objective in the recent meta. There are a couple of very cheeky yokai positions that can be utilized by the defense, making it very difficult for a plant to be secured. Fortunately, though, for Parabellum, Spirits is playing the IQ, and that is a direct counter against that information gathering operator on the side of the defense. So expect him to play a big role in this round, particularly as they try and go for the plant. Extension over towards VIP as well. Again, what we've come to expect here. So I don't think Parabellum, based on what we have seen so far, will be thrown off massively, and they'll be looking to cleanly execute their checklist.
Yeah, and they would have expected this from MIBR, of course, so it's just about getting it done quickly, not wasting too much time. Clear out third floor, make sure you don't lose any players. If you can find a pick, even better, but that's not really the objective here. It's just to flush them out, and, well, it doesn't look like MIBR is going to waste too much time either. They're happy to drop, they don't want to lose any players, and they all just twiddle back down the bottom of white stairs. Play will play over towards VIP, and we will be set in their positions for the next 2 minutes.
Parabellum, what can they do now with this early round control? We haven't even reached the halfway point and the top floor is completely clear. That means that their attention will now be fully on dining. Establish vertical with Esker and that sledgehammer, as well as opening the hatch. That'll be Penguin's job. Felipox was below and looking to juggle that hatch. If he times it correctly, he could delay this attack significantly.
Yeah, and it may just almost alter Parabellum's attack altogether if it does delay it that much. Nitrocell, not going to be successful from Reduct. They've got a couple more in the back pocket. That's Felipox who throws that one out. Does tag up Spirits on the IQ, about half health. There's going to be the dining hatch now opened up. Felipox has been the talk of the town in the last couple of seconds, and he finds the opening pick onto Sonar. That's going to make things very, very difficult now for Parabellum. Down a player, time ticking against them. They're going to have to eventually drop down and hope they can win their trades, but they're not going to have the man advantage.
The hatch has been popped, and they'll go for a coffee plant here, one would suggest. Lukidra inside of VIP, holding that cross, and Raps is close with the shotgun. This will be tough for Parabellum, but as Esker finds one, it's made a little bit easier.
Drop down, time to go for Penguin, time to find a place to plant. Of course, the Yokai drones. Got to be careful of this. Falls in position. Actually does get shot out, so that may not be an issue now late into the round. 3 seconds. Redux going to swing in. Last time we saw this, they got the headshot. Felipox just charges in. Redux holding his shoulder as well. 10 seconds left. It's going to have to be an all-out brawl late into the round. Euphoria has to win the shot. Esker's now left up into 1 versus 3, and he's got to stick the defuse. He hasn't got a hope in hell. MIBR close out Parabellum on Cafe. They will go to the top of the standings for Group B. They're 4-2, and they're looking good heading into the playoffs.
The LATAM hopefuls claim first place, at least for now, in this group. Parabellum put up a good fight. They've been playing well so far in this tournament, but just outclassed by the smallest of margins. You can see that they're a little bit disappointed in that result, but they'll be fired up. The fire in the belly will be lit up, and MIBR jubilant, unexpectedly so. A good performance from them on Cafe. They didn't have to do anything out of the ordinary to pull it off, but it was well played in the end.
Very well played. Very, very well played, Gus. I think ultimately for both teams, they shouldn't be too displeased. If you're Parabellum, and of course for MIBR, they're more than happy, right, with that performance. I want your final thoughts, though, before we do throw it to a break, Gus. How are you feeling now for MIBR moving forward?
The takeaway for me is that MIBR are a serious threat in this competition. Sure, Parabellum, probably not the toughest of opponents that they will face in this entirety, but they're still a good opponent, and Parabellum played pretty well in this game. It was a really tight matchup. Pretty difficult to separate the two. Parabellum, I think they'll be a little bit angry with how they maybe played a couple of those rounds out. A couple of lost opportunities here and there, and probably potentially a couple of thrown rounds as well added into the mix there. So they'll both be looking to reset. They still have a couple of games each to go in the rest of this group stage.
For those on the A stream, you've got Oxygen Esports versus Space Station Gaming coming up very soon. For those of us on the B stream, we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, the analyst desk will break this match down.